Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 470, The Shadow in the Night. Upper beginner. Detective Jameson sat at his desk, staring at the cold cup of coffee in front of him. It was late, and he was tired. The city outside his window was quiet, except for the occasional sound of a car driving by or a person walking down the street. Jameson's eyes were fixed on the file in front of him, the one with the strange case that had been puzzling him for weeks. A series of burglaries had been happening across the city, all of them seemingly unrelated. The only connection was that they all happened at night, and the thief always seemed to vanish into thin air. Jameson had been working on the case for weeks, but he hadn't been able to catch a lead. Just as Jameson was about to give up for the night, his phone rang. It was the dispatcher. "Detective Jameson, we have another burglary in progress. The address is 345 Elm Street." Jameson quickly grabbed his jacket and ran out of the office. He jumped into his car and sped towards the location. When he arrived, he saw that the police had already surrounded the house. Jameson got out of the car and approached the officer in charge. "What's the situation?" Jameson asked. "The homeowner reported hearing a noise and called us. When we arrived, we found the front door open, but no sign of the intruder," the officer replied. Jameson nodded and carefully entered the house. He searched room by room, but everything seemed to be in order. The homeowner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Jenkins, was shaken but unharmed. "Can you tell me what happened, Mrs. Jenkins?" Jameson asked. "I was watching TV in the living room when I heard a strange noise coming from the kitchen. I got up to investigate, but I didn't see anything. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. That's when I called the police," Mrs. Jenkins explained. Jameson thanked Mrs. Jenkins and continued his search. As he was about to leave, he noticed something strange. On the kitchen counter, there was a small piece of paper with a single word written on it: "Soon." Jameson's instincts told him that this was more than just a burglary. He decided to investigate further and asked the officer to secure the area. As he was leaving the house, he saw a figure standing across the street, watching him. Jameson couldn't see the person's face, but he knew that something wasn't right. The next day, Jameson received a call from the police lab. They had analysed the piece of paper and found a fingerprint that matched one on their database. The print belonged to a man named Jack Harris, a small-time thief with a history of burglaries. Jameson and his team tracked down Harris to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. They surrounded the building and prepared to move in. Jameson took a deep breath and entered the warehouse, gun drawn. "Harris, come out with your hands up," Jameson shouted. There was no response. Jameson cautiously moved deeper into the warehouse, his eyes scanning the area. Suddenly, he heard footsteps. Harris emerged from the shadows, a bag slung over his shoulder. "Drop the bag, Harris," Jameson ordered. Harris smiled and dropped the bag. Jameson's team moved in and arrested him. As they searched the bag, they found a number of stolen items, including jewelry and electronics. But Jameson knew that something wasn't right. Harris seemed too calm, too confident. "What's going on, Harris?" Jameson asked. "I don't know what you're talking about," Harris replied. Jameson wasn't convinced. He decided to take Harris in for further questioning. At the station, Jameson tried to get Harris to crack, but he remained silent. Just as Jameson was about to give up, he received a call from an unknown number. "Detective Jameson, you're getting close, but you'll never catch the real culprit." Jameson's eyes narrowed. He knew that he had to dig deeper. He went back to Harris's file and started reading. That's when he noticed something strange. Harris had an alibi for one of the burglaries. He was in jail at the time. Jameson's eyes widened as he realized the truth. Harris wasn't the mastermind behind the burglaries. He was just a pawn. Jameson's team started investigating further, and they discovered that the real culprit was someone who had been manipulating Harris from the shadows. The investigation led Jameson to a surprising suspect, his own partner, Detective Smith. Jameson was shocked and confused. He had worked with Smith for years and he had trusted him completely. "Smith, what's going on?" Jameson asked, trying to keep his cool. Smith smiled. "I've been playing a game, Jameson. A game of cat and mouse, and I was always one step ahead of you." Jameson's eyes locked onto Smith. He knew that he had to act fast. He called for backup, and Smith was arrested. As it turned out, Smith had been using Harris to commit the burglaries, and he had been manipulating the evidence to throw Jameson off his trail. Jameson felt a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, and relief. He had solved the case, but he couldn't help but wonder how he had missed the signs. He knew that he would have to rebuild trust with his team, but he was determined to move forward. The city was safe once again, and Jameson had caught the shadow in the night, but he knew that there would always be another case, another mystery to solve. Vocabulary notes: vanish, verb, meaning to disappear or become invisible. Example from the story: the thief always seemed to vanish into thin air. Similar words: disappear, fade, dissolve. Puzzling, adjective, meaning difficult to understand or explain. Example from the story: the strange case had been puzzling him for weeks. Similar words: confusing, mysterious, enigmatic. Instincts, noun, meaning a natural ability to feel or sense something without reasoning. Example from the story: Jameson's instincts told him that this was more than just a burglary. Similar words: intuition, gut feeling, sixth sense. Secured, verb, meaning to make something safe or protected. Example from the story: he asked the officer to secure the area. Similar words: protect, safeguard, lock down. Cautiously, adverb, meaning carefully and slowly, often because of potential danger. Example from the story: Jameson cautiously moved deeper into the warehouse. Similar words: carefully, slowly, prudently. Culprit, noun, meaning the person or thing responsible for a problem or crime. Example from the story: you'll never catch the real culprit. Similar words: perpetrator, offender, wrongdoer. Manipulating, verb, meaning to control or influence someone or something in a clever or deceitful way. Example from the story: Smith had been manipulating Harris from the shadows. Similar words: influencing, controlling, scheming. Alibi, noun, meaning a claim or piece of evidence that someone was somewhere else when a crime was committed. Example from the story: Harris had an alibi for one of the burglaries. Similar words: excuse, justification, defense. Mastermind, noun, meaning someone who plans and organizes a complex project or scheme. Example from the story: Harris wasn't the mastermind behind the burglaries. Similar words: architect, planner, strategist. Pawns, noun, meaning people or things used for someone else's advantage or gain. Example from the story: Harris was just a pawn in Smith's game. Similar words: tools, puppets, instruments. Betrayal, noun, meaning the act of hurting or deceiving someone who trusted you. Example from the story: Jameson felt a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, and relief. Similar words: deception, treachery, disloyalty. Story written by Meta AI. Image created by ImageFX AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you! Hello, this is Steve. If you enjoyed the story, please would you take the time to leave a meaningful comment and click on the like icon. If you want to know when the next story has been uploaded, please click on the notify bell icon to be notified. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tell your English learning friends so they can benefit too. Thank you.